And then we look at the kind of Lotus Renault days, and although they are mixed, some through, fault of his own, and some through like 2014 when it was just an absolute dog of a car. But there were some very massive highs in this season as well, and 2012 was a real mix for me because I think he scored 3 podiums within that year with 2 third place finishes, which I'm pretty sure were a double podium for Lotus in that season as well as a second place finish in the race, but also then marred with the Spa incident, which for me is something that unfortunately has marred his career. I don't think people have ever forgiven him for it, which is a little bit unfair.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because, like you say, 3 podiums in what is his first rookie season in Formula One. Any other driver, you'd say, you know what, that's a really respectable year. And it was the first proper season where Lotus fully came on board. They were kind of 50-50 in 2011, but 2012, alongside Raikkonen, I think he fared quite well actually. And I think the driver that we saw in 2009 was certainly not the more complete driver we saw in 2012. I think it was only 4 races into the season where he scored his first podium in Bahrain. He scored points in the 3rd race in China. So you can definitely look at some of the statistics from 2012 and think, yeah, Grosjean had a really strong first season. But like you've mentioned there were several incidents in his first race back in Australia. Made contact early on in the Grand Prix and retired. Likewise in Malaysia for round 2. And very quickly, for a driver to be in their first season of F1, to get to the halfway stage in Spa, and then after that for Monza get a race ban, that is almost unheard of. And considering that happened and he's still in F1 today, kind of baffles me a little bit, even though I'm a big fan of Romain. Because most teams would have let him go, I would say, for 2013. Even though, like I say, he got those podiums, and that drive in Canada where he got 2nd place was an awesome drive from him, and there was ability there. It's not very often that drivers get second chances in Formula One. And the fact that Lotus gave him the opportunity to come back stronger in 2013, first of all, I'm very thankful of as a Grosjean fan. But I'm glad that they gave him that confidence and belief. And I've often found throughout Romain's career, when he's given the opportunity and when he kind of has that shoulder to cry on a little bit, when he knows the team trusts in him, his performances elevate to a next level. And when he came back in 2013, mistakes that were often happening in 2012, first lap incidents, I can't quite remember the quote Mark Webber gave at the beginning of the Japanese Grand Prix in 2012 when Grosjean took him out. It was a crazy lunatic. It was like, oh, something along those lines. The year later when they went to Japan, Grosjean had a brilliant opportunity to win that race. It was only Vettel in the Red Bull that was able to get the better of him. And to just over a year see the development of that driver is again kind of unheard of. And I think the title, The Enigma of Romain Grosjean, kind of just spans throughout his entire career. Because again, 2012, a race ban being replaced by D'Ambrosio, and perhaps he was lucky it was D'Ambrosio because he wasn't the best, bless him, in that one race in Monza. But I think he did well enough against Raikkonen. Those 3 podiums, which turned into 6 the following season, I think he really turned himself around in 2013.
Absolutely, and this it might be harsh to say. It might be the pinnacle of his career. 2013. 2015 was very strong considering the circumstances in that last year of Lotus. But I think that's a very interesting point you make about the development that he showed from 2012 to 2013. And I think he showed enough in 2012 because remember, after getting that 2nd place in Canada, actually in the European Grand Prix, he was running in 2nd place in that race as well. To Fernando Alonso before he had an alternator issue like Sebastian Vettel did in that race. And, if that would have been back-to-back 2nd place finishes, that would have been pretty immense considering, rookie season. I mean, I know he finished 8th in the championship and Kimi Raikkonen finished 3rd, but you're talking about comparing a guy to who, although Kimi Raikkonen had 2 years out of the sport, was once perceived as one of the top talents to overtake from Michael Schumacher and a world champion himself. It's not a bad effort in your rookie season. Plus, with that race ban, that he had to find him. I sound like a broken record probably in recent videos because it's a line that I just think is a really nice line that sums it up. That DC in the kind of 2012 season review described Roman as a quick driver, but not a good driver, and it seems like one of those throwaway lines that are a bit cliche to kind of get a quote, but there is a difference between the two, and I think Roman throughout his career has struggled to find the consistency that would put him into that good driver category. But I don't think there's ever really been a doubt throughout his entire career of the pace he had, and 2013 was certainly a season where he showed it off, and getting 7th in the championship in the Lotus was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think just to add on that as well, I definitely agree with the statement. He's a quick driver. I'd like to say he's a good driver, but I definitely understand what you mean by that. And even over the past couple of years, I'll go back to 2013 in a second, but past couple of years in qualifying, he's done really well up against Kevin Magnussen. But as another famous saying is, you don't get points on Saturday, and it's certainly often that in those opening few laps, for whatever reason, his racecraft just isn't quite to the standard of other drivers. But certainly, I said it just at the beginning as well, I feel he's an emotional driver, because at the end of 2013, he was one of the, again, this might be slightly biased, but when you go back and watch a season review or watch it on F1 TV or whatever, from I think it was after Singapore, he retired from the Singapore Grand Prix. But for the end of that season, he got 4 podiums in the remaining 6 races, and certainly he's a driver I feel that relies on form more than any other. And he's someone, like you say, who's very quick. And when he's in the right mindset, when he's got a big result, like he got a podium in Korea, I think it was, then 2 more in Japan and India, then had that incredible 2nd place in the USA. It's moments like that and flurries like that where you start to think, oh, hold on, maybe he's lost this way of making these silly little incidents, these, I was going to say silly racecraft, but maybe that's a little bit harsh. But like you say, he's definitely someone who made the most, I think, of 2013. Whereas 2012, probably the best car of his career. He didn't make the most of it, but that was his rookie season. He learned. And for 2014 and 15, really was thrown in at the deep end to a highly historical team in Formula One. A team that had won championships, had drivers like Mansell, like Senna, like Jim Clark, all the way back in the 60s. And he was now only in his 3rd year of Formula One and was the team leader alongside Maldonado. Now, I think for a lot of people that are just getting into Formula One, imagine that would have been chaos. Grosjean and Maldonado. But I think really quickly over those couple of years, it was another steep learning curve. But definitely I think he adapted to that role really well. And I often think, I think there's certainly a reputation with Grosjean that he's a bit of a crash master, loves to find himself in the barriers. But from 2014 pretty much up to 2018, he really cleaned up his act, and for a time, before he moved to Haas, was one of the more sought-after drivers in the driver market, and that loyalty to Lotus that Lotus had shown him at the end of 2012 really paid off. And moving a little bit further on, and I'm sure we might get back in a second, but culminating in that podium in Spa, I think Grosjean really did make the most of that opportunity at Lotus.
Definitely, I agree. I think he's one of those unfortunate, and it's something that we've had time without races, so you kind of start going in your head and overthinking things over and over and just going. And even more so, I kind of look now back at careers of certain drivers and go, those are seasons that kind of changed it. And just think, the end of that 2013 season, he's gathered all that momentum, and that 2nd place in the USA, unfortunately retired in the Brazil race, but the 2014 was such a poor car in comparison to the 2013, and although his reputation was still good, it kind of halted his momentum as a driver. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that little snippet of the podcast. If you would like to watch the full podcast, I will leave a link to it in the description down below. And don't forget, if you do enjoy what we do on this channel, you can subscribe to it, click that bell notification, and you can keep up to date with all our latest content, just like this one. But for now, you F1 fans, keep racing!